Our story begins on the stairs of the Jedi Temple as Anakin Skywalker is marching up to enter the grand doors. Behind him, thousands of 501st clone troopers marched in perfect unison, and not one of them was saying a single word. The orders from his master were clear: enter the Jedi Temple and wipe out every single Jedi, as they are all now responsible for the treason of the Jedi Council. But as Anakin marched up the stairs, he was beginning to have doubts about all of it. First of all, his issues with the Jedi centered completely around the Council. He did believe that the Council was corrupt, treasonous, and afraid of losing their power. But 4 of the members have already been dealt with. The others are scattered around the galaxy. The temple was full of younglings, Padawans, older Jedi who are now warriors. In other words, the Jedi in the temple were completely innocent from any sort of political treason. Anakin was also hesitant because of the clones. Anakin wasn't exactly sure what has happened, but some sort of switch seemed to be flipped in the clones as Palpatine sent out the orders to execute the Jedi. It reminded Anakin of the situation with Tup, Fives, Rex, and it made Anakin begin to see just how far back these lies go with Palpatine. He convinced everyone that the failure of those inhibitor chips was just a virus, and now Palpatine has revealed the truth. The clones were his true endgame. Anakin thought about Obi-Wan on Utapau with Cody and the 212th. He thought about Ahsoka returning from Mandalore with Rex and the other half of the 501st. Reality began to set in that both of them were likely dead, and as Anakin continued up the stairs, he wondered if Padme could even bear to be with him after this. Because, after all, Anakin was doing this all for her. No matter his doubts about the innocence of these Jedi, despite feeling responsible for the clones, despite the death of his closest friends, Anakin knew that doing this, going deeper into the dark side than ever before, it was all so he could become powerful enough to save Padme. When Anakin cut down Windu and threw him out into the windy air outside of the window, he pledged himself to Sidious, and Sidious said that only together can they achieve the power to save Padme. Anakin was once again thinking about those words, as he came to realize Palpatine really has never told the truth. Even after revealing himself to be Sidious, he said he could save Padme, and yet, even that was a lie. He said he did not yet have the power. And so, as Anakin entered the temple stairs to hear the sounds of blaster fire, lightsabers, screams from clones and Jedi, everything began to spiral out of control. Anakin tried hiding all of his doubts away. He tried convincing himself that the Jedi were evil, and that this was the only way to save Padme. But now Anakin allowed himself to see the truth. Padme could never be with him if he goes through with this, and there was no guarantee that he or Sidious can ever save her. Anakin's ears were ringing, and a nearby Jedi Padawan was thrown hard into a pillar from a detonator explosion. Blood spurted out from the Jedi's broken body, and it hit Anakin square in the face. Anakin looked down at the young Jedi boy, and he saw himself, age 10, with all of the hope and joy in the galaxy. And now, he's becoming a monster. Anakin turned, stumbling through the temple halls, narrowly avoiding more fires, more explosions. He nearly tripped over bodies of fallen Jedi, and finally, Anakin reached his personal quarters. The door opened, and Anakin quickly shut it, breathing heavily, and he looked into his mirror. It was cracked from an explosion just outside of the room, and Anakin stared at his broken face right in the broken mirror, and he closed his eyes. He remembered one of his first ever lessons, and Anakin forced himself to focus on the here and the now. All he can do for now is try to save as many innocent Jedi in the temple as possible. He opened his eyes, ignited his lightsaber. It was time to defend the temple from his own terrible mistakes. And throughout the entire temple, Jedi were taking down 10 clones at a time, but it just didn't seem to matter. More and more of them were entering from the main entrance, but they also were infiltrating the temple from the dozens of balconies overlooking the city. In the archives room, Masters Sindralik and Shakti were standing strong with a group of temple guards, protecting this area as they hid as many younglings and Padawans as they could find inside of the restricted section. Shakti looked across the Grand Hall to see a clone fire a rocket launcher, and she knew she wouldn't have time to deflect the countless blaster bolts and stop the rocket. But before the rocket could hit, Anakin Skywalker cut through it. He destroyed it mid-air. He landed and looked to the Masters, saying they need an evacuation plan. Shaak Ti said that the clones have disabled any ships large enough to get more than a few Jedi out of here at a time. So, Anakin said they just need to get everyone out of the temple. Send everyone out into Coruscant, as truly anywhere is safer than here right now. Sindralic used the Force to roll a crashed pillar across the floor, forcing the clones to evacuate for the moment, and he asked what they must do. Anakin said they should cut out a secret exit from the restricted section of the archives, cut a hole in the floor, then move through the maintenance halls underneath the temple until they reach a ventilation area that leads outside. Shaak Ti nodded and said she will lead the way. Anakin must lead the defense and try to get as many Jedi over here as possible. Anakin nodded, then leapt high into the air, forcing the clones to focus on him. In the restricted section, young Jedi trembled with fear and confusion, and they heard the echoing sounds of the terror inside of the temple. But now, they finally had some hope, as Shaak Ti's lightsaber carved through the floor. The ancient marble cracked and hissed as her blade sliced through it, exposing the narrow passageway into the temple's underground maintenance halls. The distant sound of blaster fire echoed through the archives, but Shaak Ti remained calm. One by one, Jedi of all ages, younglings, Padawans, knights, rushed to her side, and she gestured for them to jump down into the dark tunnel below, guiding them into the shadowed depths beneath the temple. The underground path stretched towards an exterior vent that opened to Coruscant streets. Shaak Ti knew that this was their only chance for survival. Above them, the grand halls of the Jedi Temple shook with the continued constant assault of clone troopers storming through every area. The temple guards, along with Sindralic, Kelleran Beck, and Anakin Skywalker, led the remaining defenders, lightsabers weaving through the chaos. Anakin fought with a purpose of redemption, and knowing deep down that all of this was his fault. He forced himself to keep fighting, do everything possible to intercept wave after wave of the clone forces. Kelleran Beck shielded a group of Padawans, wielding both of his blades to deflect blaster bolts right back at the clones. Meanwhile, Sindralic held the central staircase, fighting off several clone leaders at once. Their combined presence drew the attention of the clone army, funneling more and more troopers towards the temple's heart. The defenders' sacrifice created a critical window for those following Shaak Ti to make their escape, and Anakin took small moments to look around as he was deflecting the countless shots. More and more temple guards fell dead, and soon, Sindralic was overwhelmed and killed. As the clones pressed deeper into the temple, the path carved by Shaak Ti became a true lifeline. Jedi continued to descend into the maintenance halls. The dark tunnel led them towards the vent, where they emerged into the rain-soaked alleyways of Coruscant, disappearing into the crowded underworld. Shaak Ti was the last to leave the archives, lingering around to ensure that no one was left behind. She paused briefly, sensing the battle raging above, and then vanished into the tunnels herself. The sounds of war faded as she sealed the path behind her, leaving only silence in the depths below. And still in the temple, Anakin Skywalker and Kelleran Beck were the final living Jedi in here. Together, the two of them made their way out to a temple balcony, and a clone gunship was scouring the walls to find any escaping Jedi. Kelleran sealed the wall behind them, then he and Anakin leapt far out into the air towards the gunship. Anakin was able to eject the pilot, and Kelleran used the Force to throw out the clones inside, and Anakin was able to begin flying it for himself. Anakin flew Kelleran down to a level deep in the underworld, and they decided that Kelleran should find as many Jedi as he can, try to get them all out of here. In time, the Jedi Order will all regroup. Kelleran asked Anakin what he was going to do, and Anakin looked up to the city, saying that he has some unfinished business. Anakin took off in the gunship through Coruscant, and he was basically invisible, as none of the clones had time to report their ship being taken over. Anakin flew to the executive building, and he landed in the hangar. Palpatine's shuttle was still here. This was good, and Anakin took off running to his office to kill him. Inside of the office, Darth Sidious was preparing for his speech as Emperor. First, he would send Lord Vader to Mustafar to wipe out all of the Separatists, shut down the droids, and he would speak to the galaxy, proclaiming that the Republic will become an empire in order to protect itself from threats like the Separatists, and of course, the treasonous Jedi Order. Everything was falling right into place for Sidious. It was perfect. But as he was getting up to go to the temple, a lightsaber ignited at his door. It was Anakin. Sidious asked what he thinks he is doing, and Anakin slowly entered, pacing the room, and he told Sidious he is doing what he should have done with Windu, helping him destroy the Sith. Sidious shook his head, calling Anakin a fool. Padme will die, and for what? But Anakin said he was tired of all the lies, the Council lies, the Senate lies, even Palpatine lies. Anakin said he's done being a puppet for everyone, and if Padme is truly going to die, then he will just save her himself. Anakin spun his saber, and he ran in to kill Darth Sidious. The Sith Lord fired lightning at Anakin, forcing him to sidestep, and Sidious ignited his second blade that was hidden away. The clashing of the sabers echoed in the room, as the two of them were colliding in blinding flashes. Anakin moved with power, somewhere between the light and the dark, each strike fueled by a mix of fury and desperation. Sidious met him with equal ferocity, his movements unnaturally fast, as he deflected Anakin's attacks with a wicked grin etched on his face. For a small moment, they seemed evenly matched, and Anakin slammed his saber against Sidious as the two of them locked eyes. But the balance shifted. Sidious began to draw even more deeply on the dark side, presence in the Force swelling like a storm. His strikes were more vicious, relentless, each blow pushing Anakin further back. Lightning crackled from his fingers again, forcing Anakin to deflect with his lightsaber, but the sheer power behind the attack left him stumbling. Anakin lunged forward in defiance, attempting to break through Sidious's defense, but the Sith Lord twisted aside with ease, using his mastery of the Force, hurling objects from across the room at Anakin. A lantern slammed into Anakin's side, and the flames from it rose up his robes. Anakin had to discard of the robe, and this moment allowed Sidious to unleash a wave of Force energy, lifting Anakin off of his feet. His outstretched hand pushed Anakin towards the shattered window behind him, and the Sith Lord flung him through the broken glass with a brutal, final push. Anakin hurtled out into the Coruscant night, just like Windu not long ago. Sidious watched Skywalker fall to his death, and he could only shake his head. Anakin was too weak to join him after all. The Sith lineage would live on forever through him and him alone. And Sidious would leave the office to go proclaim himself as Emperor of the Galaxy. Meanwhile, the Tantive 4 entered the Coruscant atmosphere, and Senator Bail Organa would immediately learn of an emergency meeting that all senators would be expected to attend. This was good, as it would allow for Obi-Wan and Yoda to enter the Jedi Temple and disable the signal telling all Jedi to return to Coruscant. Bail and Yoda looked over to Obi-Wan though, and Obi-Wan was seated and not exactly here in this moment. He just felt something in the Force, like some sort of calling out, and Obi-Wan closed his eyes, reaching out with the Force to try and find where it was coming from. And Obi-Wan felt Anakin calling to him. He was alive, and Obi-Wan quickly began guiding the pilot towards the executive building, and he told Yoda that Anakin is around here. They must find him. Yoda agreed this was necessary, and so the two Jedi leapt out of the ship as Bail took off towards the Senate. In the Coruscant alleyways, Anakin Skywalker lay bruised and heavily injured from his fall. He was able to slow himself just enough with the Force to survive, but Anakin felt like if he just let up even a little bit, he could die immediately. He felt awful. He felt like maybe it would be better for the galaxy if he did just let go. He was clearly a danger to everyone around him. But as Anakin Skywalker was feeling down about all of this and ready to just give up, a familiar, calming voice called out to him. Obi-Wan felt his call through the Force, and he was here. Obi-Wan ran up to Anakin, and he looked heartbroken. Yoda also got over to Anakin, and he told Obi-Wan to put his hand on Anakin's head. And Yoda put his own hand on Anakin's heart. Together, the two Jedi helped to restore Anakin back to being able to at least walk and fight if necessary. Obi-Wan asked what happened, and Anakin sat up against the wall, and he said that all of this is his fault. Obi-Wan said that surely that cannot be true, but Yoda knew it likely was true. Anakin would go over everything, from Palpatine revealing himself to be Sidious, to the Jedi confronting Sidious without him until he showed up. Anakin described how Windu had him, but he stopped Windu from killing Sidious. And then everything went terribly wrong until Anakin came to his senses to defend the temple. Obi-Wan was heartbroken. All of this really did tie back to Anakin. If he just let Windu do what he did to Dooku, then everything would be over. Yoda said they can discuss all of this later. For now, they must do what is best for the galaxy, and they must do it together. But first he asked Anakin if there were any survivors from the temple, and Anakin said yes, very many, but they're scattered all throughout the Coruscant underworld. Yoda said this was good. They will all unite when this is over. The three of them would then enter the temple and change the temple beacon from telling Jedi to return to Coruscant to giving them coordinates to a hidden world from a time long ago. Obi-Wan recorded this message, and when it was done, the three Jedi would move towards the Senate building. In the underbelly of the building, Palpatine was about to open the Grand Senate veranda and become Emperor, when his Red Guards were suddenly thrown hard against the wall, and at the entrance stood Yoda, Kenobi, and of course Skywalker. Sidious angrily said that he should have killed Anakin, and Anakin said he won't be getting another chance. His rule ends here and now. Sidious reached out his hands, and he said he has already slaughtered 4 council members today. 3 more should be no issue. And he unleashed tendrils of Force lightning, forcing Obi-Wan to raise his blade in defense, while Yoda absorbed the crackling energy, redirecting it into the walls. Anakin ran forward, and he swung at Sidious to force him to stop the lightning. Anakin's strikes were growing more relentless, with each passing second, pushing Sidious back towards the exit doorway. Yoda used the Force to shut the door, and Sidious retaliated, hurling debris across the chamber. A massive chunk of stone shattered near Obi-Wan, sending him tumbling to the floor, but Anakin and Yoda held the line, refusing to relent. Yoda leapt high into the air, landing on the center Senate pod that had yet to rise up, and he was forcing the Sith to split their focus. For the first time, the Dark Lord appeared truly cornered. Obi-Wan got back to his feet, and he got side by side with Anakin, and as Yoda dueled the Sith Lord, Anakin leapt through the air at him, and Obi-Wan gave Anakin a push with the Force. Sidious held up his blade to block Anakin's strike, but with Obi-Wan's help, Anakin's strike was strong enough to knock the saber away from Sidious's hands. As Sidious unleashed one last wave of dark lightning in desperation, the combined strength of Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda overwhelmed him. Together, they drove their lightsabers into the Dark Lord, the light of the Force burning away the shadow of the Sith. Sidious let out a final, long scream before his body collapsed in a heap, dark power extinguished. And then, the Senate Rotunda opened as the 3 Jedi were standing on the center pod as it rose up. Everyone began to gasp with confusion and shock, and Padme ran forward to lock eyes with Anakin. Obi-Wan quickly realized they had no choice except to try and explain themselves, and so they did. Obi-Wan went over the mystery of the Sith, and he explained that Palpatine revealed himself to be the true leader of Dooku and the Separatists. For many long minutes, Obi-Wan tried to put everything that was going on into the right words, explaining the clone troopers, Dooku, Sidious, and everything the Jedi knew to be true. When Obi-Wan finished explaining everything, the Jedi didn't wait for a Senate response. The Jedi were being seen as enemies of peace right now, and so the 3 of them just got back to the Senate floor and got out of here before clones could show up. All Jedi survivors, whether scattered in the Coruscant underworld or spread throughout the galaxy, would be sent to Ahch-To. There, Grandmaster Yoda would wait and welcome any survivors, as roughly 3,000 Jedi in total survived the Purge. Anakin Skywalker would always feel terrible for this, and he was away from the Jedi per request from Yoda. The damage he caused could not be understated right now, but in the end, he did come back to the light, helping save 3,000 of the Jedi that could have died had Anakin chosen another path. Padme would hear about what he did, and though he technically didn't kill anyone, he did help to cut down Windu, as he chose Palpatine in that moment. Their relationship was shattered for now, as Padme would indeed give a safe berth on Naboo, with Anakin close by, hoping to eventually be with her again. Chancellor Bail Organa would ensure the clones have their chips removed, and the galaxy saw a true end to the long war. After many weeks, Padme and Anakin would begin to mend their relationship, and Anakin would even bring the twins to Ahch-To with Padme, as Anakin was slowly finding guidance again from Obi-Wan and Yoda, as the galaxy would settle down for years to come. And folks, that is our story for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I did. I've obviously, I don't know, you can probably hear it, but I've got a cold that's really making my voice act up quite a bit. Hope you guys, I hope it wasn't like a distraction. I don't really know how it sounds until I get in there and start really editing this thing. So, yeah, we'll see either way. just probably allergies. Who knows? Prayers up, thoughts and prayers to everyone in the California area going through the fires right now. Truly horrific stuff. Yeah. So hope everyone's doing all right. Hope these videos can maybe provide a distraction to anyone that's going through any of the terrible stuff. And thanks for listening. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.